Apple have just announced a new MacBook model, and this could either be the saviour for all of your hardware budgets and supply chain issues. But before we start digging into this new Apple MacBook model, please make sure that you have checked that you've liked this video and that you're subscribed for all future videos here at the Sam Beast Consulting YouTube channel. As always, my name is David Foxon. It doesn't change every time we do the video, so I don't know why I say as always, but my name is David Foxon, and thank you very much for joining us today as we look at this new Apple MacBook model that they have just announced, or a few weeks ago announced, depending on when I actually upload this video. So there's a lot of issues going on in the hardware space at the moment, as you are more than well aware of, including the increase in prices and of course that shortage of RAM, which is being driven by AI demands and cloud demands as well. So have Apple been the saviour here? Let's have a look and see what we think as to whether this is going to be an alternative solution then for your hardware estate. Mainly looking at the end user assets here because it's a MacBook. So we're mainly looking at whether this could replace an existing Apple MacBook model that you may be purchasing and deploying to save a bit of money, or whether it's something you could use as a replacement for Windows devices that you can't currently get hold of. So I'm on the UK store because that's obviously where I'm based, here in the UK. And this is the Apple MacBook Neo. Straight away, you can see that it comes in a variety of different colours. But more importantly, from an ITAM perspective, this is the cheapest Apple MacBook yet. Starting off at $599, or the price can increase to $699 depending on your specification. I have noticed in adverts for this MacBook Neo already, they are showing putting stickers on the back of it. Don't do that, please, if you're doing it in a corporate organisation, because that sticker residue impacts resale value, etc, etc, etc. Plus, to be honest, I just think it looks pretty tacky if you've got a corporate device with loads of stickers plastered all over it. No one cares about the coffee shop that you go to. You know, we just want it nice, looking good, looking plain. End of my sticker rant. But anyway, here we go. Let's have a look at it. Now, first things first, what we should of course mention is this is the cheapest Apple MacBook on the market. And it's probably one of their most interesting releases that they've done in a number of years, mainly because of that price point. You've probably seen that they've delved into the cheaper pricing points for things like the iPhone SE generations that were out, and then they've moved that to the 16E as well, which is basically a Frankenstein of older, more flagship mobile phone products that they've packaged into a cheaper version now. Again, it's still more expensive than the SE, but it's still a cheaper alternative to buying that flagship iPhone 16 or the Pro Maxes, Ultras, etc. But also I think this is going to be a really attractive option in the non-corporate world, in the general commercial world as well, as it's a great starting point if you're buying, you know, a teenager, for example, a MacBook that's not going to break the bank. And as time goes on, the second-hand market for these might also pick up and are likely to be even cheaper again. So it seems like a very affordable MacBook. But is it actually going to fit the requirements that you need within your organization? First things first, let's have a look at the chipset then. A18 Pro, it's not obviously on the M chipset mantra. It's going to be nowhere near as powerful. It's nowhere near as fast. It's nowhere near as good as the M chipset. And actually, the A18 chipset was originally in the, I think, the iPhone 16, but they have made it compatible and brought it up to a standard so that it can be used with macOS rather than the iOS as well. So first things first, it's obviously cheap for a reason, and that chipset may not be right for your organization based on how your users are using the MacBook. However, if they are just a general light touch user that you need to provide a device for that's primarily using, I don't know, Microsoft Office products, could be a good option for you. Could be a really good option. That 8 gig of RAM is obviously going to dictate whether that is good enough for your corporate environment and whether it's good enough for your users. Again, when you're user profiling all of the people you've got for your hardware models at the moment, you may find that actually there is a lovely subset of users that would really benefit from this, and you could save a lot of money in moving over to the lovely MacBook Neo. Moving forward, storage, you've got two options, 256 SSD or a 512 gigabytes SSD. If you're a cloud-first organization, that may not be such a big issue for you. You may be pushing people to the 256 gig already. I know a lot of organizations are reducing the amount of SSD storage that they have. on physical devices because they're pushing that cloud first narrative, putting all of the storage into OneDrive or Google Drive, etc. So yeah, pretty typical standard options there. Again, should be okay if you're just a general user and you do have that cloud methodology. Moving on to the display then, and actually this is still a really good quality display for the amount of money that you're spending on the device. All of the reviews so far that I've been looking at that have been getting their hands on this, looking at the YouTube ones and the written ones in the press, they're all saying that actually the screen quality doesn't seem to have been diminished that much by the lower pricing, which is obviously really good to hear and good to see, excuse the pun. So that's probably less of a concern when looking at evaluating the Neo for your organization. Don't have to worry about it being a screen from the 1990s or 1980s. It still gets really good feedback and really good reviews for the brightness, the amount of colors, just in general how the screen looks as well. So kudos to Apple on that one. That gets a thumbs up. Battery also gets a thumbs up with 16 hours worth of video streaming, 11 hours of wireless web. Again, the reports that have come in and looking at all the reviews, they are actually getting about between 10 and 13 hours of usage if you were to use SaaS applications or Microsoft Office suites, for example. Really good for the price bracket. Going back to if you're only paying £600 for this, that's really good for that price. It's got the USB-C charge cable. However, we should flag already that we found that there's no Thunderbolt charging and there's no MagSafe charging either, which obviously has impacted the price on that. 2 USB-C ports, 3.5mm headphone jack. Apparently wired headphones is coming back into trend. Don't know if you've seen all the sports people now that have the white wire coming up and into the... It's like we've gone back to the early 2000s or the 2010s. It was all moving to wireless, and now it seems to be the wired headphones are the thing. So yeah, you've got that 3.5mm headphone jack. The width is quite nice as well, very comparable to like your MacBook Airs and your MacBook Pros. MacBook Pros are obviously a bit thicker because they are the chunkier flagship MacBook model. We've already touched upon the different charging options, but we should say as well, the report's saying it's about 1.2 kilos. So again, it's still a really light device. Again, for that price point, you have to go back and remember this is £600. It's such good value for money. And of course, we've got external display support, video playback, etc, etc. Magic keyboards. You've also got the Magic Keyboard on the standard one, and if you pay that £100 extra, you get the Magic Keyboard with the Touch ID also. And the cameras are 1080p FaceTime HD cameras. Again, decent. It's more than enough for having those Teams calls, those Zoom calls, whatever platform you're using. So again, yeah, it's another thumbs up from a day-to-day workload usage with the camera, that's for sure. And as you go down, you can see all of this information on the Apple website, I should state. And yeah, we can gloss over the different colors. I mean, from an organization standpoint, I'd be going for that indigo. Unless you want to be seen as one of these fun, quirky, creative organizations where you allow users to pick their colors, by all means go for it. However, from a corporate standpoint, that indigo color has got that, sleek, corporate, professional look written all over it. Silver might do as well, although in this color palette that I can see on here, it does look a bit more pinky rather than silver. So yeah, personally for me, if I was introducing this into my organization, I'd be going for that indigo color. So why have Apple actually gone through and created such a hardware model, a MacBook standard? Again, we just have to look broad out. Many moons ago, they went through Gen 1 to Gen 3. And these were all different components of previous flagship iPhone models that are all obviously aged technology at that point, but could still do a job, and they could release it at a smaller price point. These SEs were actually used a lot within corporate organizations as a cheaper alternative when they need to provide an Apple iOS product. And it feels like they're doing something similar with that, because the SE worked, they've released the 16E now, and no doubt that will continue to go up to 17E, 18E, etc. And they've clearly identified a gap in the market for someone who does not want to pay that full whack for a MacBook Air, and you're reaching over £1,600 for a MacBook Pro. They found a niche, an area where that's untapped, and again they can use that same mantra of taking bits from legacy MacBook models that are still fine to use, they're still good, they still work, and bundling that up into a device that costs so much less than the other ones to open them up to an even wider market. Now, if you are looking at this for your corporate organization, of course, please make sure you're following your hardware onboarding process. you're going to need to validate that the specs and configuration that you can actually create will meet the requirements of the users you're looking to deploy this for. It may be that they're absolutely fine and the existing MacBooks that they're using are nowhere, not even using the full capabilities of it. But you do not want to end up going and buying loads of these Apple MacBook Neos only to find in 3, 6, 12 months time that actually they're not fit for purpose. They're not compatible and the users are complaining, saying how slow they are and they're just not good enough to cope with the workload and demands that they're putting on them. So this is a very entry level MacBook option, and you may not even have a case for it at the moment, but if you're thinking along those lines and you're an Apple house, there's absolutely no harm in ordering one and doing it for testing so that if the time comes, you are ready to unleash the Neo into the wild, into your organization. With the great battery life, the great screen, you've got the great cameras as well, you are looking at a really good entry-level device that could be used for people like your sales staff, your admin staff, even as a complementer to your support staff and your help desk staff. If they're primarily using, low bandwidth, low demand applications, if they're using SaaS, if they're using cloud apps, and if they're just using Office, then they could be absolutely fine using this, and it could be a great alternative. Just obviously make sure that with all of the software you're using, that the RAM really, it is okay with 8 gig of RAM, and it's not going to have any performance issues or lag with the software. Because then again, back to my previous point, you go back into that whole nightmare of it not being fit for purpose. There's so much to like about this, and it's just fantastic to have yet another option for something that you could add into your hardware convention at a much lower price. I haven't seen one of these in real life. I've not had a play about with them, but they're getting really favourable reviews. Obviously looking more at the end user consumer market, but from a corporate perspective, you can make that decision yourself by getting a test device in, going through your onboarding process, like I said, and seeing if it's something you can add to your hardware convention. And you may also then realize that you can use this as part of your hardware refresh cycle for your existing MacBooks or even the Windows devices that you simply cannot get hold of due to the supply chain issues. It's another option, and that's what we're all about, is having options so that you're not limited and narrow focused into specific models. We've got another one we can add into that pool now. Have a look at the specs, watch some videos, speak to your Apple account managers, go into a store, have a play about with it, which I certainly will be going into an Apple store and having a look at these Neos to see what they look like hands-on and have a bit of a play about and see what its capabilities are. But yeah, please have a look at it. It might help alleviate some of the pressures you've got on the Windows devices and not being able to get stock in. It may help ease the burden of the increased costs that are going on in the hardware space at the moment, and you're lowering hardware budgets. It could be an option. It may not be an option. Completely fine. It may not be an option, but please at least have a look at it. Please make sure that you've liked the video and subscribed so you don't miss any more content coming up in the next few weeks. And until then, I really hope you found this useful. And as always, happy ITAMing and happy and welcome almost to the ITAM ecosystem, the Apple MacBook Neo.